Have you ever felt like giving up, quitting, throwing in the towel? Welcome to Never Ever Give Up Hope featuring Carol Graham. She's an author, health coach, and motivational speaker. Backed into a corner multiple times in her life, Carol shares with you stories on how she overcame some of the toughest obstacles a person can go through in life, but refused to give up hope. Rather than admit defeat, an opportunity was presented, and it involves each and every one of you. Carol will feature spectacular guests who will share their messages of hope, encouragement, and their inspiration to prove why life's adversities only make you stronger. And now, welcoming the host of the show, here's Carol Graham.
Welcome to Never Ever Give Up Hope. Never Ever Give Up Hope is a show about people who have done just that. No matter what happened, they did not give up. Many of my guests have survived horrendous circumstances and have overcome incredible things in their lives and have become better people because of it. Many have survived extreme poverty, abuse, or serious depression, or diseases, or losses that they never thought they could cope with, losing whether someone they love or their business. There's a lot of pain out there, and one thing that I am so happy to do is to share their stories, because everybody has a story, and when they share that, you never know who you are going to help. That's why this show is now in 140 countries, because there are people all over this world that want to hear stories of other people's success. And that's what we do. And I thank my guests, and I certainly thank my listeners, because without you guys, we wouldn't have a show. With me today, I have Jacqueline Carlisle. She is the editor-in-chief and creative director of Thinkmag, which is an online digital glossy for sustainable living. I looked at it and it is beautiful. You guys are in for a real treat today when you look at Jacqueline's website. Now, this part really intrigued me about her bio. When she was a month old, her family moved to Singapore by the way of India, and she started to write at 2 years old. Now, there's a lot of 2-year-olds that can't even talk. So I thought this was really interesting, and I'm very anxious to hear what Jacqueline has to say about that. As I mentioned, your website offerings are absolutely phenomenal, and I can't wait to share them with my audience. There's beautiful styles, and they're all eco-friendly, and accessories. So this is going to be a fun day, and I appreciate so much of you sharing with us today, Jacqueline. Welcome.
Thank you, Carol. It's been a long road to get to you, truly. It was like trying to get an audience with the Pope with me, wasn't it? But we're finally connected after many years of trying to sort this out.
Has it been that long? Oh my goodness. That's amazing.
I know. It is amazing. It really is. But the show is called Never Give Up.
There you go.
And that is exactly what happened here too. Didn't give up.
And that's why it's going to be even that more special, right?
True. Absolutely. Yeah.
It sounds like you were born to be a writer. Well, tell me, what about this whole 2-year-old writing business? This is intriguing to me.
It really is. I don't know why it stuck. I think my mother decided one day to teach me a word. I was walking around with at 2 years old with these huge bags with all sorts of odds and sods in there, and I still am the same person. I'm just taller. I still walk with a big bag with lots of odds and sods. I've got pens and writing material, and she said that's what you used to carry, balls of twine and pieces of this and that and ribbons and whatnot. And she decided she just, for a laugh, she'd teach me a word. I was relentless. She said you wouldn't go to bed until you learned how to write that word. And that was it. It
Wow.
just was something that it just, I don't know, it really took hold of me and gripped me. Even as my cousin, who we were growing up as sisters in England, actually, after we came back to England, my cousin and her mother had moved in with us. And we were talking this year, and she said, she goes, I remember when you were small, you would say, I'm going to work at the Chronicle and Echo, which was the newspaper in Northampton, and you would take your little satchel and you would go in the other room and pretend you were at the newspaper. She said, she said, you've always done that. You've always. And I always wrote, even if I didn't publish anything. I did publish a poem when I was a child, but it wasn't about publishing. It was about writing. I've kept a diary since I was 10, which I think if I die tomorrow, somebody will have a field day looking through all those volumes. And I still write in a diary, not every day, but I write quite frequently. I still am an old school writer. I keep a pen and a book with me. I have a couple of books on the go. I have a little one. I have a small, medium, and large, depending on what I'm carrying. So it was something that I hadn't pursued at all. I kind of, life throws you curves, right? And you go down another road. And it wasn't until the year of 9/11. Actually, I was back in England, and I hated my job. I was with my then partner, who was quite lovely, and we're friends today. He told me to quit my job, which I thought was insane because we were on the brink of a breakup. And he persuaded me over dinner to quit my job, which I did. So I became a trophy flatmate, I called it, where I would, just take care of the house and him. And one day I saw a lottery, which, I mean, it was just insane that this happened because they've never done this again. Elle magazine had a lottery when they used to have a book review section in their magazine, and this lottery just write about a book, review a book that you really love, send it in. If you were chosen, you would become a book reviewer for a year. I became obsessed with Catcher in the Rye. I hadn't read a lot of American classics, and I'd lived in a flat in where somebody had left the book. So I didn't even buy the book. Catcher in the Rye was just left in my apartment years prior. So I brought it with me. It was all tattered and worn, and I still to this day is one of my favorite books because of the story attached to this book. So I read it several times. I became a bit obsessed about the story. I thought the story was amazing. I thought the author, there was all sorts of mystery shrouding this author. This became very intriguing. So, of course, I wrote my review on that book, sent it in, didn't think anything of it until I got an email that said I was chosen and I was going to get unedited manuscripts and tra-la-las for a year. And I thought, this is insane.
No kidding.
I thought, wow. And that kind of got the ball rolling. I ended up seeing an ad for a magazine, actually, funny enough, in Philadelphia. It was an independent magazine. It was all pre-social media when, God, when print was just such a glamorous position to hold.
Yes.
And there was a number of independent magazines that were doing extremely well during that time. And this gentleman, Jay, in Philadelphia, he was starting an independent magazine, and it looked quite good. And I thought, I'll just write and see, but I doubt he'll choose me. And he did. And I came on board, and I sort of worked my way up and really learned the ins and outs as I went. I mean, I didn't intend to go in, but I find, if you're meant to do something, whether you get thrown off that path or not, if it's truly your calling, the path finds you.
Absolutely.
It'll find you again. It will always find you again, and it's up to you to take that opportunity and run with it. Even though you may think you're going to be an absolute flop, you need to go and run with it and see where it goes.
As I mentioned in the beginning of the show, everybody has a story. It's the things that we go through are the things that make us who we are. And we wouldn't be the people we are if we had not gone through those things, whether they're good, bad, or indifferent. Now, there were two events in your life that were quite traumatic, and I'd like to share those before we talk more about who you are today. The first one was an abusive marriage, and I know that there will always be people that will relate to those who have gone through, especially women, in an abusive marriage. And he didn't even want you to write. And this was your
No.
first love, which is obviously from what you do. I mean, you can hear it in your voice. It's your passion. So how did you overcome that? And tell us a little bit of that story.
Oh boy, I I honestly didn't know at the time. I really didn't know how I found myself in this position until years later, when I came to the realization that I attracted this person because I have been taught this behavior. You know, we're taught how to be treated from quite small. You know, you're programmed quite a young age. So if you're, you know, I mean, my mother, I love my mother, I always will, but she's quite a narcissist. And one day the penny just dropped and thought, my God, I've married my mother, who's somebody who's never going to support anything that I'm doing, is never going to give empathy when required, is going to expect himself to be revered and on top. And I mean, this wasn't I'm not that kind of person. I'm a difficult person to push down. I will always get back up. I'm Taurus of the bull. I'm stubborn as hell. Don't tell me I can't do something or get in my way. And you know, it became very small, where, you know, I would be isolated. He would isolate me. He wasn't interested in meeting anybody or introducing me to anybody. He wanted us to stay indoors all the time. It was very odd. And when you bring somebody close, and like I always say, when you bring someone into the temple, you're vulnerable and you're trusting that person, because your guard's down. You're expecting a partner to be, you know, just be supportive and be happy for you to build, you know, a really great relationship. And I realized as I went through, this wasn't the case. It was every single day I was being lied to. There were things being hidden. I was not acknowledged at all. The relationship fell on my shoulders. There was nothing coming back. And it started with verbal abuse, and then it started to get a little more aggressive until one evening it got really nasty, and he tried. I'm trying to remember if he tried to choke. Yeah, he did actually try to choke me, and I went to bed thinking I'm going to make some clear decisions in the morning. Like, I'm not going to deal with this now. So I went to bed, and I thought I was going to go to sleep when he came in and picked up the bed and threw me out of the bed, and that scared me.
No kidding.
To death. It scared me to death. I picked up the phone and called the police, and they came, and I think I hit him with a Timberland boot or something. I do remember fighting back. I do remember fighting back. But I know the police came, they separated us, they examined me. Of course, my neck, like, it looked like I had been attacked. And they couldn't decide. And I couldn't believe this. I make the phone call and they can't decide who to arrest.
Where was this?
Here in Toronto.
Oh my goodness.
Now, I found out later it's the Crown who makes the decision. And in this country, this is countrywide, I found this out much later, that if a woman does fight back, they can arrest you as well. And that's exactly what they did. They took us both in.
So you're not allowed to be of any self-defense?
The majority of women that are sitting in prison today that fought back because they hit their wall. And they're in prison. I found this out going through this process. And it was, I think about it now, I'm not ungrateful for the process. I'm actually quite grateful for the process because I became a bit of an advocate for women and children in crisis, because unless you're a quick think, I'm a quick thinker. I'm not a panicky person. So when they were taking me in, I thought, you know what? I'm not taking my wallet with me. I'm not taking anything. I'm not going to make this easy for them. I'm coming home. I'm in and out because this is up. You shouldn't be arresting me. I said I want to speak to a lawyer, so you can't question me.
Right.
And sure enough, I came home, and actually came home on the police's dime. I told them they had to drive me home because I purposely left my money at home. I'm not a panic. Like I said, I don't panic. I think for once, every one thought my husband was having, I had 4 thoughts past his. And he stayed in prison, and then he stayed in that local jail, and then he was moved to the big prison, the Don jail here in Toronto. And the next day, I got a barrage of phone calls from women in crisis, women who have been abused. I got a phone call from the court telling me that they've moved my husband. I couldn't believe how many phone calls, which didn't make sense because I'm the one who got arrested as well, but now you're giving me all this support.
So what was the outcome?
So the outcome was he actually fled the country, and I have a law. I pay for law services per month, so I had access to a lawyer already. I mean, that was a saving grace. I told my lawyer he was going to run. I knew he was going to run, and I was like, I don't really care what you're doing because now it's just me versus you. And my lawyer, the court wanted me to go to anger management courses. I know. I just thought, go to anger management courses, and then there wouldn't be a record, right? It would be scrubbed. And I didn't want to. My lawyer had got he got the discovery back from the incident, and my lawyer said they don't have anything. He read through the whole incident. He said they don't have anything. He said, so what I would suggest to you is just delay, go to court and say, yes, I'll do anger management. Then you have to go back into court for your anger management date. So next time you go back in, you say, I've changed my mind. I'm not going to go. I'd rather go to trial. So I kept doing this with months of, I know, good months of going back and forth until my husband left the country, as my lawyer asked me to do. And once he left the country, I went back into court, and my lawyer advised me to speak to the Crown prosecutor. I made an appointment to speak with a lovely man, very handsome, by the way. Gosh, he's gorgeous. Quite a dish, considering the situation. And I went to the court. I remember in the afternoon, I went to see him. And I said, I'm happy to go to trial. He said, we can go to trial. I said, there's nothing there. I said, we read the discovery through. You don't have enough. He said, well, we may. He said, there'll be witnesses. I said, there's no witnesses. I said, and neighbors are hearsay. So I said, I don't think you have anything else. He said, well, I can't just make this go away. And I said, well, then we need to come to an agreement. And he said, are you making a deal? You want to make a deal? I said, yes, I do. I said, I'm not going to sit in an anger management class with thugs and God knows what else for a week, losing money. I said, it's not going to happen. And he said, okay, you find a therapist of your choosing. You go to 3 therapy sessions, you bring me a letter that you've gone, and we'll wipe it clean. And that was the end of that.
Wow.
More or less. And I actually stayed in therapy for a while. I thought, you know what, this is an opportunity to really hash some, because I want to know, how did this happen to me?
Right.
At that point, I kept thinking, why did this happen to me? Why did this happen to me? How did this happen? And I wanted an answer to why that happened. So I stayed with my lovely therapist for a year. She was a beautiful lady. And it dawned on me that, you know, I've been taught to accept that behavior. I've been taught a long time ago to accept that behavior, and that's why I attracted that behavior.
Interesting.
I know. It really is. I mean, you know, I don't know what it is for everybody who's gone through, because I know there are tons of women who have been in abusive relationships. And my God, it runs the gamut from very poor ladies to very rich ladies.
Yes, I know that.
I couldn't believe
Yes.
that surprised me, that it doesn't matter what the income bracket or social status is. It's affecting so many women, and most of them don't have the power to leave, the means to leave, the support to leave, which I think is just, and then they've been ripped apart, mentally, that they're just incredibly shattered.
That was probably a pivotal point when you were released from being under his control. But then, how did you get yourself back? What did you do? Other than I know you had therapy, and that was probably part and parcel to it. But you are a strong woman. That's very obvious from what you've said. So, was there something in particular that you did to gain your self-worth back?
I don't know if I think I just had to gain back my a feeling conscious.
Okay.
I felt really numb. I wasn't really here. I was here physically, but I wasn't here, and I couldn't write. That was horrible. That I couldn't. That was the key thing. I remember telling my therapist, I said I can't write. I couldn't write for almost a year, and that broke my heart because this is my first love. That hurt me more than I think anything else. And she said to me, "I'm not surprised that you can't write." She said, "Considering what you've gone through, this is pretty normal." And I thought, well, yeah, but that's
not normal for you.
Not normal for me. Nothing stops me from writing. Well, this did. This did. And this broke my heart. And then the next year, it was just a barrage of death.
Yes, that was my next question. So how did that happen? Was it accidental or just...
No, it was just a lot of elderly people. It started with my uncle dying. I think he died before his birthday, so I think he died in March, and then I had another death in June, and then there was 2 deaths in September. We had to kind of break up as a family because we couldn't be in 2 places at once. It's like, well, this group will represent over here and we'll go over here to represent over here, and it was just one after the other, after the other, after the other. And then the next year, the same thing. Every couple of months, there was a death, there was a death, there was a death, there was a death. And having that many people die, people that I really loved and admired and enjoyed, die, gave me a sense of clarity. I can't let all these deaths be in vain. Like, they can't be for nothing. And for this was 3 years of just turmoil and pain and abuse, and I just couldn't believe what was going on. And I thought that it can't be in vain. I have to find a way. It wasn't until I had actually took somebody out. She was feeling very blue, and I thought I'd take her out and cheer her up. And she said something to me that was very peculiar. And she said, you sound a lot like... I've always been a fairly optimistic person. Even in the darkest hour, I would feel that I could still... I know this is going to pass. I'd always say, this is going to pass. This is going to get better. I'm going to start writing. Things are going to fall into place. I always say that. I still say that to this day. But the difference now is how I talk to myself is way different than when I did them, when I realized how powerful words are. And I'd always respected words. I have a deep respect for words. Words for me I honor words, but how powerful what you're saying to yourself, how much power that can have. And that changed everything. I started practicing I started like unlearning a lot of things and relearning, like reprogramming my mind.
So through this, is that how Thinkmag was birthed?
No, Thinkmag came on board before my husband.
Oh, you're kidding.
No, it came on before my husband. I actually, the magazine that I worked for out of Philadelphia had folded in the middle of the night, and we were out of a job. Like many magazines had folded when social media really exploded.
Yes.
I had so many people around me said, "Why don't you just start your own magazine?" I said, "You're mad." I said, "No, it's a very expensive venture. There's a high failure rate." I thought, no, absolutely not. But I kept hearing the same message over and over and over from anybody who was either in publishing or around that area, in a creative realm that I knew that was working in a creative in media, kept saying, "Why don't you just start your own? Why don't you just start your own?" Let's just say it like it's so easy. And I thought,
So what did you do?
So I thought, you know what? At the time, it was $1 million to start a print magazine. I mean, it still probably is around that amount of money or more to float your magazine for 5 years. I knew that if you wanted to succeed.
Okay.
I thought, I can't do that. Which is crazy today, because I realized what I had said then. But even though I shouldn't have said that, I should have said, I can do that. It doesn't matter. The million will come. Because the million will show up if you believe it will come. It'll come. But I didn't say that. I thought, can't afford to start a print publication, la la la. And then I was in London. I was working. I had got back on board crewing for Fashion Week, and I was at Hussein Chilean's show. It was I think he's from Turkey originally, but he shows his collection in England, lives in England. He did a collection on weather, and entire collection, all the clothes had morphed into something, like a hat with a scarf would drop out of the hat, long dress would turn into a short dress. It's all just done like literally by magic. It happened on runway. It was fascinating, and I something said, due to the environmental changes in weather, that I think is going to grow. What is wearable technology? And I started investigating it a wee bit. I thought, well, okay, if I'm going to start a magazine, how can I start a magazine with no real money? I thought, maybe I should try a blog or something. Maybe I'll do a digital thing. So I started going down that rabbit hole. And I thought, I don't want to just be a fashion magazine, because my background, I had a lot of experience in design in general. And I thought, and design, architecture has always been important to me. Coming from England, I mean, architecture is stunning. It's always very important. History was always very important. So I thought I'll start a design magazine. I thought, what can I do? I want it to have integrity. I want it to be sustainable. I thought, sustainability. I should look at that. Maybe I should look at that. And I remember I was at a fashion show here in Toronto, starting the magazine, got the name. The name came out of nowhere. I sat and brainstormed with a friend of mine. We sat there all day, killing ourselves, trying to find the name. And one day it just popped out of nowhere. And the URL was available. It was bizarre. I thought this is not going to be available as a URL, and it was. And I was at a fashion show, and it was makeup artist I'd worked with in the past. And he said, "What are you doing these days?" I said, "I started a magazine. I'm starting a magazine." He said, "What's it on?" I said, "Oh, sustainable design and wearable technology." He goes, "Oh, because that's never going to fly." And I said, "All right then." I thought, you need to start reading more. That's what I thought. And that was, years ago, and it just one thing fueled the next, that fueled the next, that fueled the next thing. I was really surprised who I got to work with. I collaborated with the British Museum through this magazine, and they found me. I was very surprised because I didn't have a massive following, and you don't really need a massive following. You do need a really good, just high quality content in a niche market with a good following. And I worked with Knoll Furniture, which is amazing. Got to beta test and review this chair that they flew up for me. It was in this massive box. It was like a small Japanese apartment. This box was huge. I thought, you've got to be kidding. And it just, things just fueled. I've worked offline quite a bit through the magazine, which I like. I mean, I don't mind working digitally, but because it's a wee bit isolating. But the type of opportunities I got to work on offline has been amazing. And through my marriage, I remember telling my husband, I said, you know what? You get in the way of this magazine and this marriage is over. And I've said that, and I've stuck by that from day one. Anybody that gets in the way of this magazine growing or me doing what I love, it's done. We're done.
You were a woman with a purpose.
I am a very, it could take me 20 years to decide what I want to do. It really could. But once I make that decision, get out of the way, because the train is leaving the station.
I can relate, and I'm sure there are many others that will too. Now tell us about your products, because I looked online and oh my goodness, they are absolutely stunning.
Well, I think there was a lot of, and there still is, a lot of, really negative, frightening information around sustainability and eco-friendly, and it's very confusing, and it makes people feel like they're not doing enough, which I think is insanity. You're putting a lot of fear into the public. Right. Mm-hmm. And I understand why. Fear stimulates an economy, but when it's not stimulating the economy in the best possible way, people will buy products. I believe people want to do the right thing. They want to do the right thing for themselves and their family, but sustainability, it feels like it's out of reach. It's very expensive, and sometimes it isn't. So we wanted to kind of bridge that gap where, yes, sometimes it can be, but then sometimes it can't be. But then sometimes you really should be just investing in your pieces, because you're going to keep it for a very long time, and you're going to spend less. Like, for example, I've had shoes made since I was a child, and it sounds awfully grand, but Northampton, England is still a shoe industry, not as large as it used to be, but it has a very established, prestigious shoe industry where you got your shoes made. And I have my shoes, the first pair of shoes I've ever walked in, I still have those. I have shoes made that were made in 1998, I still have those. So who's spending more? Me? Up front, investing in this in handmade shoes, or somebody that's going to have to buy shoes every year? I've spent less. I still have these shoes from 98, and I do take them to my lovely cobbler, which is a shoe repair person's cobblers. We call them cobblers in England. And he just, renovates them. Like maybe I put a half a rubber sock. It's an all leather shoe. The whole thing's leather. It's like walking on a cloud. It's one of those comfortable shoes. And when I brought it to my cobbler here in Toronto, I found a really good cobbler. And when he first saw them, he went, "Where did you get these shoes?" I said, I brought them in England. I had them made. He goes, "This is a very meaty shoe." I thought, well, that's hilarious. And he was right. It's a very heavy shoe, even though it doesn't feel heavy on the foot. But I've had them since 98. And if they could tell, 98, I know. And they're still going strong today. So we write about, all sorts of things like clothing. We write about architecture, industrial design. We've written about electric motorbikes a while ago, actually, when they weren't the fashion and they were just coming up. Did a fantastic piece, which I'm proud of, about the toxic material being used in jewelry aimed at tweens. Cadmium is like a lead.
Yes.
Yeah. And there was quite an expose on that. And what I loved is, as part of that voice, I don't know if I don't think I alone changed it, but collectively it got changed, where cadmium has now been taken out of a number. I think 1 or 2 retailers no longer use cadmium. It's been barred completely in Europe. It cannot be used. Yeah, it cannot be used in Europe at all, which is wonderful because it's disruptive. It's disruptive to hormones. These are children that are growing, and you're going to disrupt their hormones. It's insanity. It's insanity what is going into our clothing. It's insanity what's going into our furniture. And so we write about alternatives. I try not to get political, but in the last couple of years I figured if politics and design intersect, then I will talk about it, and I will do my research, and I will try and bring that to light, because I think people need to know what's in their clothing. I think, people need to stop buying so much. Fast fashion has taken quite a foothold, but will die off, because the new Generation Z, is a very forthright and noble generation. They're real warriors. They will not get behind any products that aren't diverse. They will not get behind products that aren't clean. They will not get behind products that aren't inclusive, which I'm loving. I came back from a trend conference this summer, which was fascinating. That that this new generation, the Z, so this is the generation after millennials, of who they are. They're like little warriors. They're like little social warriors. And I thought, yes, you go forward, because I can only do so much, but I'm trying to do it for now. But you're the future, and you need to pick up that torch and carry it.
So where can people find your magazine?
So they can find it online. It's thinkmag.net. I'm actually going to launch an ebook. People have been asking me how I got started. So for digital publishers, anybody who wants to create a magazine, I think I sent you a link today. But
yes, and that was my next question. Is tell us about that course that you have created. So actually,
this is for the ebook. I actually decided to. I'm still in the process of writing it, but I thought for your listeners, for the first 50 subscribers, I'm going to give the book away for free, because the book is going to be sold once it's completed. But for your listeners, they'll get a free copy once it's finished. And it's really about how you get started and how easy it is. It really isn't that difficult. How easy it is to find contributors, how easy it is to start with actually very little money. You don't have to spend a lot of money. And also, I'm going to name some niche markets in that book that are very much underserved still to this day. Content is still king. It's become more of a big thing now than ever before, because it's really not about the quantity, it's about the quality of your content. Like the Wall Street Journal contacted me by LinkedIn to partner. I just couldn't believe it. I looked at it. I've actually saved it. I thought, is that real? Anytime I get like a major corporation contact me, I'm thinking, this is a joke. And I've called them in the past, and I got an email from so and so from this year, and they said, no, that person does exist. Because there's lots of interesting spammy emails, right? So I never believe it when it happens. And I think it keeps happening because my content is not like everyone else's. Like, I'm not saying it's 100% unique, but it does have its own identity.
Right.
The magazine itself, I've had covers exclusively created just for that issue. We've shot covers in different countries in Spain, shot cover in Malaysia, just for this issue, where, I got an opportunity. It was wonderful that you don't even need to go to these countries to really do it anymore. I can show you how I did that. I actually Skyped in and gave creative direction on set from the comfort of my sofa at 4:30 in the morning to Spain. It was lovely. I thought, this is great. I don't have to get on a plane. It's not as difficult. I think if somebody has a passion, you do have to have a passion, and you do have to really want it. That's your first hurdle, because if you don't want it, don't bother.
Exactly. And I think that's true in anything, that when there's passion, you will achieve.
You will so achieve. I was at the supermarket today, and this autistic boy who's, he probably is like 22, but he looks 18 or 16 to me. So he looks so young. He told me a month ago that I may not be here because I'm maybe getting a big situation, a big opportunity. I went, oh, what is it? He said, I can't tell you. I went, fine. I said, well, I wish you well. Well, today I saw him, and I said, so what happened to your big opportunity? He said, it didn't happen. I said, well, clearly it's not meant to be. He goes, no. He said, I know there's a better one coming. I just love this little boy. I thought, yes, there is. I said, this wasn't the right one for you. Something better is coming. He goes, that's right. He goes, if it isn't Toronto, it's going to be in Vancouver. I said, absolutely. That's the spirit you have to have if you want to do anything, really. And publishing for sure, because publishing is a nasty market. I must admit, there's a bit of a dark side to publishing and media. It's gotten a little better because we're in a different time where, right. You can't really hide your light under a bushel anymore. It all comes out.
That's right. Oh my goodness, that really has changed.
It really has
changed. So the link to the free book, you're going to send that so that the listeners can get that. Correct?
They can get that. Yeah, it's gonna, like I said, it's going to talk about what's happening for 2020. What you should do before you even launch a magazine. When I launched my magazine, it was almost a year before I launched an issue that I gathered everything together, and I had all my issues for the year. Because people think, just go and just do it. It'll be so cool, it'll be fantastic. It's like, yeah, you may not last that long though. You want to be able to create. You want to be able to create continuity and consistency
and some quality.
And quality, and I don't think. I've done 16 issues, and then when my marriage broke up, I actually just stopped. I just couldn't do it anymore. But I can't believe those 16 issues. They still garner attention. They still get me work. They still get me collaborations, which is bizarre. I find. I'm going to put out an issue for 2020. We're working on that now. But the quality will always remain, and I really love that. And I was very fortunate that I had a great team of I gathered a great team of people together that were all over the world, and some I've never met. Like, we've never met. We've only Skyped or we've chatted via email, and they came on board. I believe I kind of equate it to The Wizard of Oz, one of my favorite films. I think if you believe that you are doing the right thing, this is what you really, really want. It's like being on the yellow brick road, and all of a sudden these people just show up and they help you.
That sounds like it's something that you could tap into for the conclusion of what you really want to share today, exactly what you just said.
You've just got to be very clear. Like, I think you should follow a passion. You need to follow your passion. And also you need to follow your passion for a good income stream, because nothing's for certain anymore. This is the new normal. Nobody's getting a pension after 20, 35, 40 years, or however long you're going to stay on the job. You may not get that. You know what I mean? Like, you may or may not. It depends. Who knows? You hope you would. So I think, especially for women, we're in a century where we have more female millionaires than we've ever had in history, ever. We have so many women with money and power and position, and there are more coming. And this really is the century of the woman. It really is. We have resources like never before. You need to eat, breathe, and live your passion. And when you decide to do that, people will come. They'll come out of nowhere.
Well, that's quite the statement. Thank you so much, Jacqueline. You certainly have given us a lot to think about, and I know that my listeners are going to want to take a look at your magazine, take a look at your website, everything that you have talked about today, and encouraging. I appreciate it, and thank you so much for being on Never Ever Give Up Hope.
Thank you so much for having me. Sorry, I'm so thrilled to have done it. It really has been a privilege. It's been a privilege to finally connect with. You have no idea, listeners. It's been like it's been like trying to get an audience with the Pope, isn't it? I said that before. It's been years in the making, but I'm thrilled. I'm so happy we're and like I said, it's been a privilege to really connect with you. Thank you, Carol. All the best.
Thank you for listening to Never Ever Give Up Hope, featuring Carol Graham. Did you know that most people succeed because they are determined to? Quitting was never an option. Carol loves your comments and will respond to each one. So please subscribe and review this podcast. A rating of 5 stars would be outstanding and appreciated. Remember, if you are still here, there is always hope.